Mira Business FM, where business comes to talk.
Welcome back to Midday Majlis with myself, Sahar Mushtaq. We're live on Mira Business FM. And just before the break, we were talking about what drives business success beyond the technical skills. And today, just to discuss that, we're joined by Barira Shahid, a corporate trainer, higher education faculty member, and a PhD researcher who has extensive experience in the field of communication. She'll share insights on how professional presence, clear messaging and collaborative skills can shape careers, strengthen teams, and deliver real results in today's fast-paced multicultural UAE market. Welcome to Midday Majlis, Barira. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Sahar. It's great to join the show.
Thank you for coming once again. And let's start with the big picture. How do you define effective business communication in today's corporate environment?
You know, it's quite interesting that how many people believe that communication is all about language, having perfection in language skills, especially international languages like French and English. However, research shows something very interesting. 7% of the communication is about words, 38% comes from tone, and
clarity.
55, and 55 comes from body language. So communication is not about finding the right words. It's not about looking for the right words. It's actually much more than that. Communication is clarity, confidence, how you say things, how you listen,
how you express.
Yes, how you carry yourself, and then how you connect to others.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so business communication today, as you said, is more about clarity and the purpose, impact, not just exchanging information, right? So from your experience in the Gulf, now focusing on our region specifically, what communication skills are most valued by employers here in the UAE?
See, this region is a global business hub. Diversity is at its peak here. And it's a home to nationalities from hundreds of, you can give the number as, backgrounds, cultural norms, languages. Businesses operate across languages, culture, ethics.
As a core professional competency rather than just a soft skill.
You know, we always say this in our postgraduate, classes, and when I go for workshops and training sessions for professionals, that think of communication as your channel to be able to express yourself, voice your opinion, to be able to see it's okay and great, actually, to be smart, But then if you're unable to project that, you're unable to actually
show how smart you are.
Yes, how you carry yourself. So actually, in our postgraduate sessions especially, or our executive sessions, we make sure that the participants tend to understand that it's very much important to actually project, your skills, project who you are as a person. So it's not enough to say, I'm really good at this. You need to show.
Exactly.
You need to be visible. And I believe that, there was some type of myth, visibility, and it's true. Feelings, some people have such blank faces that you wouldn't even know what they're feeling.
So clear communication definitely reduces errors and saves time.
100%.
And of course, keeps the teams aligned, right? So
of course.
Now, common communication gaps, when we think of this topic, in your observation across workplaces, what are some common communication gaps among professionals in the region?
I wouldn't really want to highlight language because I personally do not believe that language is anything. The way we sit, the way we walk, the way we talk to people standing, and then I would want to list the tone. We do not really focus on the tone, but tone matters a lot.
It does.
See, you can say no in different ways, and each time, no will carry a different meaning. When you say no, you have space to push the person to make no yes. When you will say something like, no, oh, that has a deeper meaning. And when you
True.
say no, that's a straight no.
Exactly.
So you see, the tone carries such a strong meaning in it. So the way you say it, you make it clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've put it so right in the words. And now that the UAE is incredibly diverse, so how can communication challenges impact teamwork in multicultural organizations?
Again, very interesting question, Sahar, because it comes back to my own experience. I have worked across many universities here and across many different, I would say, environments. So what I would say is that when communication is something you have truly understood as a necessity of your day, of your presence in a team or in a place, an institution, then I think we all start working upon our right ways of connecting with people. And I always bring this word forward, empathy. So I believe that when you want to connect with people, the very first thing you need to understand is empathy. You know, people misunderstand empathy and sympathy. There are two very different things. So empathy is when I actually put myself in your shoes. You know what happens? Majority of the times, there are no misunderstandings anymore because I can actually relate. I can find some place where I can say,
Express as well. Yeah.
yes.
And the power of clarity is something that we have touched upon when we first started the interview. Now, one word we hear often is clarity all the time, okay? But what role does clarity play in avoiding misunderstandings in corporate world?
Clarity is overused, you know?
Exactly. This is what I was saying.
Yes, it's an overused expression, term. I really don't understand the idea when people say, be clear. How? You know what? Do you want someone to be clear in words? Do you want somebody to be clear in their intentions? Do you want somebody to be clear in conveying the message?
Projecting their ideas.
Yes, or projecting their ideas. So to me, I feel that clarity has a lot of meanings because it's a very contextualized term. Where do you want somebody to be clear exactly? Is it their intentions, the meaning, the idea? So I think it's a bit an overused term everywhere, you know. Be clear.
We hear it all the time.
Oh, yes. I have heard it many times, you know what. It's being said to me, and I also say it to some people as well, like, be clear. But then I ask myself, what do I want them to be clear about here? So to me, clarity is important, but it should not be overused
And it
at
always
places.
prevents the confusion.
It
right?
does, true. Clarity is needed. And you know what? It's not that we shouldn't be clear in our communication. We should definitely, because that's the first step to avoid miscommunication, to avoid any misunderstandings, especially at workplaces.
And also the unnecessary conflicts, let's say.
Of course, of course. We definitely agree on that, you know, you need to be clear if you need to have a clear communication.
Get that. And now, email is still the backbone of business communication. Now, this is an important discussion that we'll head into. Now, what distinguishes an effective professional email from an ineffective one?
You know, Sahar, I think you would agree that since we have gotten ChatGPT and we have gotten really interesting AI there, I think it should not be a problem anymore to say that there's a confusion in the emails.
But then again, if you do not give clear prompts
There
to
you
ChatGPT,
go. So that's the key.
Exactly. So then we're back to clarity here.
Yes.
So we do not give the proper prompts to
Yes,
ChatGPT or any other
100%.
AI tool we're using.
For sure.
And we're not able to get there.
And you know what? Now it takes me back to what I always say in my classes, that ChatGPT cannot, or any AI cannot think on your behalf. You first need to have something to give to ChatGPT. So that's the prompt. You need to prompt it correctly. So if I talk about confusing emails versus clear emails and all, subject line to me is the main thing, because that's that window that tells if I really need to open this email out of the 100 in my inbox to look at and read.
It has to catch your attention.
Exactly. Very clear, to the point. Subject line is something everybody should pay attention to. In today's fast-paced world, to be honest, look at the number of emails we receive. And you cannot go through all of them.
Exactly.
And then you miss out on something very important that was in your inbox.
All the time, actually.
All the time.
Yeah.
So subject line, and then honestly, keep it to the point. Precision, accuracy, composed email. Nobody has the time to read 10 lines. And then there's only one little thing in there that should have...
And sometimes it's a whole book written.
Oh, yes. Even in today's world, honestly, I myself receive emails which are like 10 lines long, and I'm like, wait, what exactly do you want me to know? And then at the end, like, really? This is what I was supposed to know in the last line?
They just want you to read between the lines there. So,
and even then you will write another email asking them, what was the email about?
Yeah, it just puts you into doing more work. This is what I was about to say.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and beyond just message itself, how important are tone and structure in business email or writings and business communication through emails?
Tone is a very tricky thing in the emails. This is something very interesting to actually, for everyone to think about and to focus on, that how to manage this tone in the email, because that's widely misunderstood, that you did not really mean to, what you said. Because when you're speaking, your body language is helping you promote the idea better. But when you're writing, it's just words. And that is why miscommunication happens more on messages or on emails rather than in-person communication. And that is why I'm sure you would agree that when there's any sensitive issue in workplaces, they prefer to have in-person meetings.
True.
Because body language plays a huge role in it. So when you talk about tone in the emails, that's quite tricky. You need to be very careful. And to me, clarity is the key. Don't go with all those difficult, high-frequency words. Stay simple so that you avoid confusion, you avoid misunderstanding. You just simply say what you have to, if you really have to maintain a good and correct positive tone in the email.
And also to build relationships.
Of course. Relationships, I believe, is the main thing at work.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to really structure well and ensure that, everything is aligned and it has the right tone, right structure.
Yeah.
And again, don't give those wrong prompts to ChatGPT
And
there.
also, I'll add one point here to our discussion, and to whom you're writing this email to. If you're writing to higher management, the same idea, you will write it in a very different way. And if you're writing the same thing to a colleague, your co-worker...
Yeah, the tone has to be completely
different. So you need to look at the target audience all the time. You need to look at who's going to read this.
Yeah, exactly. And many professionals also struggle in meetings when it comes to business communication. How can people share their ideas more confidently and precisely and professionally?
See, Sahar, we always say that to everyone out there, that including myself. So I'll tell you from my personal perspective and experience that I got to have the confidence to stand in front of 150 people and talk to them, deliver a workshop or conduct a workshop, because I think one thing I understood with time was just be clear to yourself first. So I'll make it easy what I say to my students. First, make sense to yourself. And when the content or what you want to project makes sense to you, it will make sense to others as well. And do not overthink about language, accent, pronunciations. Come on, in today's world, do we really look at that? No, we don't. Now we really want to communicate. We really want to deliver our ideas.
Indeed.
So I think what first thing people need to understand is that overcome your fears And you know what? Nobody can do it for you. You need to do it for yourself. And now we have such a strong access to internet, podcasts, YouTube videos. There's so much out there.
Exactly.
Listen, process, and what you know that only. So you are the master of your own
Skills.
Exactly.
Exactly. And from meetings to now presentations. So, what makes a business presentation impactful and persuasive in a work setting?
Precision, it has to be to the point, target audience. You need to make sure that it reaches the right set of audience. You customize it, personalize it to reach right mindset. And also, because of so much of awareness, you cannot bluff things anymore. There's no fluff here and there if you look at it. It's very quick and easy now, actually,
It
to
is.
check. So you need to make sure that what you're conveying in a presentation or in a business, meeting or anything, you need to get the ground facts,
You need to see if it is really audience focused.
Yes, 100%. And then you build your message around it. So audience, the message that you want to convey, and what is the purpose?
Exactly.
And then you build your presentation or your message around it.
Absolutely. And then when communicating upward, how can professionals present complex information to senior leadership clearly and concisely?
It's pretty much related to what we're talking about all this time. Like, we are always having such meetings. If I tell you from my experience, every other week, we are to present something
Right.
to our line managers, to program leads, and somehow we are always expected to make it amazing. I always use the word pitch. Everybody should know how to sell their pitch, and honestly, the idea is that in 30 seconds, say what you have to, and then elaborate it. So your audience, be it your line manager, leadership, hire management, they need to get the core idea.
Within the first 30
Yes.
seconds.
First 30 to 40 seconds, they need to know, why are you here?
So setting the tone initially is what is going to capture their attention.
100%. And from there, you build further by elaborating, explaining, exemplifying, convincing. But then those first 30, 40 seconds is the game.
And those first 30, 40 seconds shouldn't really entail a lot of excessive details, right?
No, yeah. It should be more likely the core idea, the gist of the message, the backbone, So you're just telling what exactly needs to be known, and then
Later you deep dive into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense. And then in a region as diverse as ours, you have experience of working in the GCC. How important is cultural awareness in business communication in this time and age within the region?
A lot, Sahar, honestly. What I've experienced so far, cultural awareness is another important aspect of being able to work in multicultural, highly diverse places. I have been to so many places. I have worked in so many institutions and organizations, and I'll tell you, it is all about cultural awareness. How much do you know about the people you're working with, you're dealing with, and not only how much you know them, how much do you know them as a nation? I'm not saying that you need to run a completely Wikipedia background learning on that, but you need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to know people from different regions of the world, their background, at least the basic knowledge of everything. And I always say that in my classes that, you need to be aware of your presence. You need to be aware of your surroundings. Who are you dealing with? And honestly, this region is an amazing place to exemplify all the time. So you're living with different people in the same building. How many nationalities? You're working with so many different nationalities. You're having lunch, dinner. So I think every one of us during one
Yeah,
single
because this
day.
place is so culturally diverse.
Yes. And look at the events we celebrate here. From Ramadan to Christmas to Holi to Diwali.
Yeah.
There you go. So if you are not culturally aware of what's going around you, how can you be a part of that
Society.
that community?
Exactly. And I guess we'll move on to our next topic of discussion, which is communication isn't only about speaking. We did talk about this earlier. Now let's dive deep into this. How does active listening influence professional relationships at work?
You know, it's a very interesting question. And to tell you, we usually conduct a full-on session about active listening. So you can imagine how
Interesting.
important it is. There are full chapters, modules upon active listening in communication. Active listening is the core to effective communication. How would you ever respond to someone if you have not been listening? And you know, Sahar, listening and hearing are two different things.
Oh, really?
Listening is when you process what you have heard
Okay.
and then you decode and then you encode a message accordingly. So in simpler words, you listen to something, then you understood it, you processed it, and now you're going to respond accordingly. Hearing is just a sound coming from one end, and then it does not really make sense.
You could be hearing a song in the background. Now, that doesn't really need so much attention.
There
to be
you
paid.
go.
Yeah.
So listening, active listening in itself is very, very important. And it is definitely one of the strongest aspects of good communication. That's why how you must have heard this phrase, listen to me. Are you listening to me?
Yeah.
So?
We do
It
hear
does
that a
have
lot of time
meaning,
from our
though.
moms.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so good listening definitely builds trust, reduces conflicts again, and strengthens teamwork. So, is there anything else you would like to add there before we get to our next topic?
I think apart from active listening is actually coupled with eye contact, I would say. So for when people say active listening, I feel active listening and eye contact, they should come together. Because active listening is like when you will only listen when you're making an eye contact with me. So for active listening, this is just a hack I'm giving, that if you really want to understand and know if somebody's listening to you or not, just check if they're making an eye contact with you. So when people are listening, they'll make an eye
That's a
contact
very
with
good
you.
tip.
Yeah. And if they're not listening, honestly, they will look everywhere else other than
Okay.
making an eye contact. I mean, they will, but literally for like a nanosecond time.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're not really fully paying attention
Yes.
when they're not looking, right? So we are actually going to discuss some more strong communication skills topics with you right after a short break. We're in conversation with Barira Shahid, who is a business communication trainer, and this is Midday Majlis on Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
This is Midday Majlis with Sahar Mushtaq on Mira Business FM, where conversations connect and ideas come alive right at midday. Don't forget you can catch us live on Mira Business FM, streaming now on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and of course, Telegram. Our podcast is also available on all your favorite platforms anytime, anywhere. And right before the break, we were talking about serious stuff with our guest in the studio, who is Barira Shahid, the business communication trainer. And let us now, Barira, touch on some difficult conversations, not very, but slightly. How can actually strong communication skills help in managing conflict at work?
So strong communication actually helps keep difficult conversations, calm, progressive, respectful, and solution focused. So I think I would say that when people tend to get into some sensitive conversations or conversations where they have to express their concerns clearly and they listen without being defensive, So that's where strong communication is really, I think, functional.
Right. And here it really plays a role as it protects us from damaging the relationships in our
For
workplace.
sure. Because at professional level, if you look at it, it's like, like blame, rather than blaming a colleague, why don't you focus on the solution? So if you have good communication, I think you would want to focus on what is the problem. Because to my learning, this is not that an individual is a problem. Problem is always the situation. So let's not blame the individual.
Very well said, I must say.
Yes. So let's not blame the individual here. Let's just look at the solution. And you know what? Communication actually somewhere somehow trains you to start focusing on solutions rather than going around and complaining about the problems.
Makes sense. And when it comes to leadership and communication, often go hand in hand, right? So, how closely are communication skills linked to leadership potential?
I think leadership is all about communication. And I'll tell you again that I have worked with so many line managers, and every time I had a very different experience, not because of the place, but because of the person I have worked with. Because of my line manager, I have had a different experience. So leadership definitely is completely connected to good, strong communication skills. So if your leader is empathetic, approachable, open, and willing to listen, you do have strong leadership.
And how do you actually work with your team as a leader? Because you are a lecturer as well. And I'm sure that you're working with a big group of people at work. So, how do you actually practice that?
See, I will not say that I'm always great at communication.
Do you think leaders are judged at times?
Of course they are,
the time?
honestly. And you know what? These expectations, like, I'm sure people have these expectations when you become a leader or you take up any strong leadership position. They expect that you're going to do an amazing job. You will know everything. You will understand everything,
Lots of expectations.
Of course. But that's not the case. They need to think. In fact, I always say, and I'm very loud about it, but because I think voicing my opinion is something I have learned over time, that I must voice my opinion. And so I always say, you are not a chat GPT. You're not an AI. You will make mistakes. So when you become a leader, be open to accept that, yes, I can and I will make mistakes.
And I'm a human at the end of the day.
Yes, indeed. So there are two things, Sahar, I always say. Accountability and credibility. So when something goes really well, we're really happy and, to take the credit.
True.
But when something
all the time.
Yes. And when something goes wrong, let's be accountable as well.
Why not?
Why not? So both things should be a part of leadership. Take the credit, also be accountable if anything goes wrong. So I think this is what I practice. As a teacher, as an instructor, as a part of my team, or any leadership position I've held so far, I'm always very open to say, oh, sorry, this did not work really. So let's go back or you were right actually when you said that and I did not listen to it.
Right.
So I think openness.
Because it doesn't make you, a smaller person at the end of the day.
Not at all. These are just our inner insecurities that make us feel like that. If you're confident, if you know what you're doing, you know your work, and you know your potential and competency, no way, Sahar. These things are just our inner self-generated fears.
True that. And when it comes to career progression, Barira, have you seen communication skills directly influence promotions or career growth?
To some extent, Sahar, I would say yes, but I wouldn't say that it's fully dependent on that. Many other things are, of course, a part of your promotion,
like visibility.
Progression.
We were talking about it earlier.
So visibility is definitely one of them. And communication.
Because you might have it all, but if it's not visible, then
there you go.
How do you progress?
Exactly.
How do you expect to be promoted at a role?
There you go. You are doing a great job. You're doing a great job at your desk. But then somebody has to know that you are doing a great job. So that's why visibility definitely is one of the parameters, I would say. And along with that,
Credibility.
Openness, be able to connect with others, empathy. So all these things, it's like set of skills, you need to progress. So I wouldn't say that communication is the only, they're different, rungs of the ladder that you have to take to reach somewhere. So it's a set of skills, I would say.
Yeah. You really have to take that first step to be on the 10th floor.
Of course.
You can't expect yourself to just be up there.
No.
Exactly.
And
Without
if you
taking
do
that very
that,
first
it is
step.
you cannot sustain.
True.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And for non-native English speakers, this is a very important topic to talk about. For professionals whose first language isn't English, of course, what should be their main focus when it comes to business communication?
So you are taking me back to, not even back to, it's my PhD is about pedagogical approaches to enhance non-native English speakers' academic performance in the UAE. So I'm in my third year right now, and I am working on how to help non-native English speakers to be able to enhance. However, my PhD is more focused on academic performance, and our discussion right now is more about business.
Business
Exactly.
communication.
Yeah. So, see, being non-native does not put you down at all. You and I would know it, how it is, Like I very proudly say, this is not my native language, which I'm using throughout my 9 to 5 day. In fact, even back at home now, our kids speak English only. So language is never or should never be considered a barrier to your communication. Yes, you need to work on it. Unfortunately, you have to upgrade your language skills. But then do not really depend upon them all the time. Language is needed, and it should be
Improved,
up to,
worked
yes,
on.
definitely up to a certain level. There has to be clarity, but we need to understand accent and pronunciations are two very different things. Accent comes from different regions.
Cultures.
Yes.
Yeah.
And pronunciation?
We might notice some people have very strong accents.
Of course.
Because they're coming from a certain region.
Yes.
Right.
And pronunciation is all about saying the right word in the right way.
Get that. And what practical steps can organizations take to improve communication?
Trainings. I always say that organizations should actually support, facilitate trainings. Train the teams, offer them training sessions, outsource sessions. It's much needed now. Moreover, they need to encourage open feedback.
Do you see that it's much needed now than back in the days?
I think, Sahar, it's much
Okay.
needed now. You know why? Cultural diversity.
And the world is progressing at a very fast pace.
Indeed. So we definitely need it more than before.
Yeah.
I
than
don't
ever
remember
before.
in the last 10 years I would have heard, like if I go back 10 years from now, no, there was no such thing as communication trainings happening as much as they're happening now.
True. Now we also have to communicate with our new best friend, ChatGPT.
Oh, like
And that takes a
anything.
lot of work as well,
It's amazing.
isn't it?
And if you just come to how this generation, today's generation is using ChatGPT, you'll
All
be
the time.
amazed.
And I think they're better at it than us.
They are, definitely.
10 times better, I
Yes,
would
they
say.
are.
And what about the feedback channels? Do they really make a real difference?
I believe they do if there is certain structure to feedback. What are you going to do with this feedback? How open you are to hear and have a constructive feedback. You know what? It's easy to say feedback, but then it has much more in it. constructive feedback requires openness. Are you really open to and flexible to listen to what people have to say? Have you given them such
The chance.
trust? Yes, that they will be open to give their feedback, or you're taking the feedback because it's a tick box only. So feedback is a great thing. Personally, I believe organizations should have this platform. But then again, what do you plan to do with this feedback is important.
True. And because we're running out of time,
Yes.
what is one piece of advice for professionals in the UAE looking to strengthen their business communication skills?
That's interesting. I never thought about if I had ever to tell somebody what exactly you need to do in this way, but I would definitely say that work on your communication by being aware of who you are as a person, believe in your expertise, believe in yourself, know your skills, acknowledge your talent, and project it better.
I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. What you've said is a great advice. And honestly, you've added so much value by being here on the show today. We have really learned a lot of insights in terms of business communication from you. And we look forward to having you on the show again, hopefully soon.
Thank you so much, Sahar. It was amazing to have this wonderful discussion, talk with you. And I'm sure that you have a long way to go with this amazing platform.
Yeah, and always you're welcome to the Midday Majlis right here at Mira Business FM. That brings us to the end of today's discussion with our guest, Barira Shahid, who is a business communication trainer. And I'll be back with more engaging conversations and interesting discussions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Mira Business FM. Until next time, this is Sahar Mushtaq signing off.